Welcome, everyone, to Library Lovers Week 2025 with Every Library. I am Becky Spradford, and I am from RA for All, and I'll be your host for a fantastic conversation with some wonderful authors. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about Every Library. Every Library is the National Political Action Committee for Libraries. They provide pro bono support to libraries that are facing censorship and funding challenges. They fight every day to ensure that libraries are open and free from censorship. Before I bring our guests out tonight, I just want to ask you to help me support Every Library during Library Lovers Week by making a donation today. When you do, we'll send you the library sticker of your choice. Aren't they adorable? And then you can continue to share the love of libraries all year long. Please head over to libraryloversweek.org to start a monthly donation of as little as $3 to get yourself a sticker and support libraries. And now I am ready to start this program with you, Imagined Worlds and Reimagined Lives. I'd like to welcome our authors that are going to have conversation today. Mary G. Thompson, the author of One Level Down, and Sarah Beth Durst, the author of The Spellshop. We're going to talk about these books a little bit more in a minute, but first, I would love each of you everyone watching, to get a chance to know each of you. So, Mary, can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. Well, my name is Mary G. Thompson. If you want to find me like on bookshops or whatever, you ought to look for Mary G because it's such a common name. So that's why I do that, not to be pretentious. Anyway, so I'm an author. I have written middle grade fantasy and sci-fi and teen fantasy and teen contemporary thrillers. And this will be my first adult science fiction book, One Level Down. So I'm really excited to be here for this. And by day, I am actually a librarian. I'm a law librarian by day.
Mary, I started in libraries as a law librarian. That's great. Awesome. Thank you, Mary. And Sarah, how about you?
Hi, I'm Sarah Beth Durst. I'm a writer. I write for kids, teens, and adults. Spellshop, subtly hold up here, is my 28th book. It's my first cozy fantasy, the first one I have with a talking spider plant in it. And I've wanted to be a writer my entire life. This is the only thing I've ever wanted to do. I've always thought books are magic. You know, they're these little rectangles with the power to transport you and take you on a journey and then bring you back again, hopefully slightly changed. And I've always wanted to be a part of that magic.
I love it. And both of you, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to give you each a chance to talk a little bit more in depth about your books. I'm going to just say this to everyone out there, though. I love this idea of the imagined worlds and reimagined lives as our theme tonight. These are books that I think a wide range of readers would really enjoy. And I'm going to start with you, Sarah, because I have been on record. I train librarians for my job, basically about how to match books with readers. And I'm on the record talking about how much our readers at the library are craving cozy fantasy. I know we hear about romantasy, but I'm telling you, cozy fantasy is what people are really looking for. And I know we talked about this off stage, but some of it's because of that double escape, right? It's that escape of the cozy, something better than what they're living in their lives right now, but also the literal escape of fantasy. So can you tell us more about the world we enter in the Spellshop? Also, what drew you to this heartwarming speculative genre? Because I find it interesting that this is your first cozy fantasy as well.
Yeah, I actually approached this book by how I wanted the reader to feel when they did it. Usually I start my books with some sort of concept, like I want to write about a talking squirrel, I want to fly on a dragon, you know, that sort of thing. But this one, it started with a vibe. I wanted this book to feel like you're sitting on a couch and you're wrapped in a warm blanket and there's a cat on your lap, or maybe a winged cat in your lap, and the snow is falling gently outside and you've got a book in your hands. And I wanted it to feel that way. So I crafted the whole book around that idea. And so the Spellshop, it's about a librarian, a rogue librarian, and her best friend, who is a sentient spider plant, who open up a rather illegal spell shop. And I wanted people to feel hugged. I wanted them to be able to take a deep breath and to feel like they were entering a sanctuary, to some place where they could leave everything else behind and have a chance to just recover and then later re-enter the world and feel a little bit better about life.
It worked on me. That's how I felt when I read it.
I totally agree. And I know I was reading the tagline to John, who's running this in the background. I have to read this from the book cover because it's totally true. You know, sometimes the book covers promise and you don't get it. Like a Hallmark rom-com full of mythical creatures and fueled by cinnamon rolls and magic, the Spellshop will heal your heart and feed your soul. I do have to say that there's a lot of cinnamon rolls and a lot of magic.
There is. I did a lot of snacking while I was writing this book. A lot of hot chocolate was consumed, a lot of cheese, and a lot of jam.
So just be ready to be hungry while you're reading.
I recommend having a snack. Definitely some tea, maybe some toasted jam.
I want to say this is your first cozy fantasy. Do you feel like this is something you're going to want to do again?
Yes, it was so much fun to write. I mean, I'm definitely one of those writers that like love the writing. I love just making up worlds, and like playing with sentences and creating character. I mean, our job is to make up imaginary friends and then hang out with them. And cozy fantasy in particular, pretty much I just approached each chapter by saying, okay, what makes me happy? And then adding it in.
And I love that because I think it comes through. And Mary, you even said it too. Like you've totally felt that way. I think that readers appreciate when you put your heart into a book. Thank you for sharing a little bit about the book. I'm going to go on to Mary now. One level down. It offers a different look at our theme tonight. And it's a little more, you know what? It's definitely not cozy, but it does have a lot of heart, I have to say. And it's not, all bleak. So it's a simulated world in which our protagonist is trapped. And what I loved about this is we have stories about simulated worlds all the time. But in this case, our protagonist is close to 60, but she's trapped in a child's body. So just that whole concept was fascinating to me. It's terrifying as a science fiction story, but it's also hopeful. And I really did like how it takes on the importance of the issue of identity, just head on, in that story. So you can tell us more about One Level Down and how you used an imagined world to tackle real world and serious, important real world issues, and also still give us some hope, which sometimes seems like it's in short supply.
Well, I was imagining a world in which, people have the technology to create any universe that they want. And you can buy any universe that you can pay for. And what would people choose? And I thought some people would choose crazy stuff. Some people would choose normal stuff. Some people can only afford to pay for a small universe. But these people have chosen a very constrained universe. They've chosen to live in a certain way, and they've chosen to treat each other a certain way. And so the character is trapped in this world it's not her choice to be in the world. It was the choice of her parents' generation to go into this simulated universe. And why did they make that choice? Why would people make that choice? Would you make that choice? And if you're stuck in it, what would you do to try to get out? How would you try to change your paradigm? And so it's a horror situation that I feel like for women, for girls, like sometimes we feel this way. I certainly felt that way when I was 5, and I feel that way sometimes now, the way that we're sometimes treated. So you have to find a way to escape your situation, and realize that there is a way to escape, even if it seems really difficult. And all it maybe takes is one person to help you, to ask for help and to find a way to use whatever tools are available to get out.
Yeah. I really liked how the story was, you get invested very quickly into the world. And it's funny because Sarah talked about just making the worlds, and Mary has, what you want to feel happy. And Mary has sort of the twist on that. What happens when you make a world and it doesn't make people happy anymore, But I really did feel what you're saying. Like when you get trapped in a place, even though it was very much a story about the people living through it, what do you do? How do you identify yourself? How do you get yourself out of a bad situation? And there was a lot of hope there to do it. I think you did a really good job talking about that. And I think people will really see a lot in themselves, no matter who they are, in the book. So thank you for doing that too. This is your first adult book. What made you want to write to an adult audience this time?
I really wanted to explore some science fiction concepts that I feel are more difficult to do in YA, and I love YA, and I'm still doing YA and everything. I have a recent recent YA book called The Words about a girl escaping from a cult. Just throw that in there.
Oh, cult books are so popular.
I really like, as you can tell, like there's a lot of like hard sci-fi sort of speculation in this book. And I love exploring those deep ideas as well. And just a different tone and content than you can do in YA. So I like to do lots of different things, but I'm super excited about having done this sci-fi.
So just like I asked Sarah if she's going to go back to cozy fantasy, are you going to come back to adult at all, or for adult stories, Mary?
Yeah, I mean, I have another adult book in the pipeline, and
Awesome.
so I'm continuing to do as much as I can, but definitely there's a lot more ideas to explore, definitely.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for talking about your books. Now I want to move on to libraries, because that's why we're here. And I just want to remind everybody again that we are here to help every library, help libraries across the country. So, we are here doing this for free for you, but we would love for you to donate. Again, for as little as $3 a month, you can get a sticker of your choice. And we'll talk about that more at the end, but it's just libraryloversweek.org. But I do want to talk to you about the importance of libraries. First, I would love for each of you to share a fun library story and memory about your time in library, or what using the library. But I would also like to us really look seriously at how important libraries are in in upholding a free and democratic society, because that is a lot of what its risks. I don't want to be a downer, but like every library exists to help secure funding and to help libraries stop censorship. And while you're thinking about your stories, I would just like to make a plea out there to everyone watching. I'm a 24-year elected official as a library board member. And if you do nothing else, first donate. But even if you can't donate, please, you can do something to help. You can go to, and make a commitment to do this in the next couple of months, go to your local library or school board meeting and commit to getting up there and making a positive comment about your library, because we do not hear the positive comments, and the boards need to hear those. And if those libraries that every library has to go in and help, they're going to help them when it's too little too late sometimes, right? They're under the 8 ball. There's things happening that are bad. But if they've heard those positive comments, they go a long way. So please, I really hope you can donate to every library, but also make a commitment to go support libraries as well. And every library has resources for you to do that. It's not that hard. So I'm going to ask Sarah to go first. Please share some fun stories about the library and really make your plea for why they're important to support.
Libraries are home. You walk into any library anywhere and you are instantly welcomed in. There are a million friends for you to find and a million worlds for you to explore. And libraries have been an integral part of my life forever. There's actually a clipping of me, age 4, from the newspaper. I was a child getting library card. Like, I was the poster child. Like, we would go to the library so often, and I would get out an unreasonable number of books. Even though we would be there like every week, my mom had to make a rule that I could only take out as many books as I could carry without a bag. So I got really good at stretching my arms out, tucking them under, and waddling out with a million books, to the point where the first time I went to a library with my husband, he gallantly offered to carry my books. My husband is almost 6'7". He can hold a lot of books.
A lot of books.
He swore never to go to a library with me again. But they've been a part of my life forever. I mean, when I decided I wanted to be a writer, age 10, very first thing I did was I went to the library. I went to the 808 section, which is where the crafted writing books are, took them all out and read through them. And that's always been my go-to anytime something big in my life happened. When I was deciding where to apply to college, when I was planning my wedding, when I was going to have my kid, I went to the library and took out all those books to try to learn how to be. And I think that's what libraries are for.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It's funny you say that, because when my kids were little, we had a bag, and they could go get all the books that would fit in the bag for both of them. And then they could take the books anywhere in the house, but the bag stayed in the kitchen. And so they were always constantly doing that. So I love that story. What about you, Mary? Because you are a librarian as well.
I am a librarian. So I'm a law librarian. So I'm not a public librarian or a school librarian, but I mean, my thing is really the independence of librarians. I don't know if we're talking about, But my fun library story is my middle school library. That was like the best place to be. And we had the best books. We had everything, and we had stuff that, looking back on it now, I'm like, I bet like they didn't know that they had those books. Like, the content of those books that I read from my middle school library. But it was amazing because I read so many adult books that were in that library. And this is like what I would herald, like, kids should be able to read whatever they can read, regardless of the level, because I read so many things that some people wouldn't be allowed to read today because it was supposedly above their level. And that's my best memories of middle school, is going in there and getting like James Missioner, I would look for the biggest books because I thought that was cool, so I looked for the biggest books, and that stuff was
Mary, we would have been friends, same.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about the independence of librarians, though? I think we should talk about that.
Well, so, I mean, that's just like the most important thing, like, because even though I'm not a public or school librarian, like I went to library school, and, your job is to choose the collection based on the needs of your patron base. And so nobody from one political side or the other should be telling the librarian what to purchase, because it's your job as a professional to make that decision. And I don't care if it's something that you want the library to ban or it's something you want the library to buy. It's so important for librarians to be able to make that decision for their patron base, not for themselves, right. Not for you, not for what you like, but for what your patrons need in your community. And that's the way that we get the biggest variety, the best variety of books, and books that are for everybody.
And I love how this goes exactly with what Sarah was saying, right? Because she said anytime she had a big moment in her life, anytime she needed information, you went to the library. And you didn't know what you were going to need before you needed it, but the librarians who craft the collection knew what to get and what to have for people. Yes, thank you, Mary, for saying that. I think it's really important, because those of us who went to library school, myself included, we understand all these concepts and we can express it from our professional standpoint. And I love that. But Sarah said all the things that Mary needed to happen for Sarah to find that experience at the library. So I'm really glad you're both here to do that together and talk about it.
And whoever that middle school librarian was, I don't even know. I don't even remember interacting with that librarian, but whoever they were, she's probably a woman, right? She probably purchased those books that were so important to me. And I never met her, but she did a lot for me because she was willing to pick books that maybe weren't for kids and put them in her middle school library.
I love that you picked the biggest book. We would totally have been friends. That is cool, right? Thank you for sharing that. And do any of you have any fun I know Sarah shared a fun story about being a kid and all the books. Do either of you have any fun stories to share about your library, or shout out to your public library that's near you? I'm going to shout out mine, the LaGrange Public Library. We do a great job. I'm really proud.
Well, I live in Washington, D.C., so we have a great library just up the street from me in Chevy Chase. Yep.
My local library is Emma Clark Library, and every time I walk it, they have everything I want to read. It makes me so happy, even if I don't know what it is I want to read when I went in there, which is the best thing about the library, that you can walk in and have that moment of discovery of a story that you didn't know that your heart needed, and it'll be right there. I
love that. Before we go, I do want to give a shout out too, because we were talking about being children. My parents used to drop me at my local library. I grew up in New Jersey, so the Hunterdon County Library. I got dropped off there. And, Mary, you were talking about being able to read books maybe that weren't for you. And Sarah, you talked about, exploring the whole collection when you needed it. They literally left me at the library and said, we'll get you in a couple hours. And I went all over that place. So, yeah, I love it. I love that.
Yeah, I should shout out my childhood library, too, which is Northborough Library in Massachusetts. That place was just formative to who I am.
Love it. Okay, now we're going to talk books, because, we're here for libraries, but everybody watching this are all readers too, right? Yeah. And I really want us to smash everybody's to be read list, or as we call them, TBR. So if you want to share, because this is what I do, right? And on the last talk, I even gave reading suggestions to each of the authors based on the books they love. So we're going to hopefully go there as well. So let's talk about this. Books, authors, all-time favorites, recent favorites, upcoming favorites, just books you wish you could, not wish, that you can shout out to everybody, that you hope they go to their library and read it. Sarah, let's let you go first.
I'm going to shout out Mary's book, One Level Down.
That's a great one.
It's one of those rare books that hits you in the heart and mind simultaneously. Most books like choose one to either hit your mind and expand it or hit your heart and lodge there. And Mary's book hits both. And I think that was like brilliantly done. So that's going to be my first choice.
And why don't you go, Mary? Then we'll go back and forth.
Okay, well, I mean, I picked Sarah's book too.
I didn't mean to corner you on that.
Of course, yeah, no.
But you already mentioned you really liked it. Yeah,
I recommended it to a friend who was like in a bad mood and she wanted something nice to read. And she was like, oh, it was perfect. So, yeah, I mean, there's other books. So I recently read a book called Unity by Ellie Bangs, which is bad. I just came across it because it's the same publisher as me. And it's just so fat. I was like so blown away by this book because it's like a kind of post-apocalyptic cyberpunk thing, but like it was so well constructed. And I was just blown away by that. So that's my first pick outside of this group here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and then Sarah, what else do you want to talk about? By the way, if you liked Mary's book, you should try Dare to Know by James Kennedy, also a YA author who went to adult. And I think
I've read that one. I've read his middle grade book was one of my favorites.
So you should all try that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Sarah, what else? What other authors? And you were talking about going to the library too, like authors you've loved throughout your life, who you feel like have been there with you, or books you want to make sure that people read.
Yeah, I mean, somebody asked me in an interview not that long ago, like, how have your reading taste changed now that you've grown up? And I was like, oh, I didn't know they were supposed to change. I still love all of the same books that shaped me. Diana Wynne Jones and Tamara Pierce, Lloyd Alexander, Susan Cooper, Bruce Coville, all of those writers with magical worlds for me to explore. Robin McKinley, Anne McCaffrey, David Eddings, Terry Brooks. I could go on and on.
Yeah.
More recent authors that I have just absolutely adored. The Teller of Small Fortunes by Julie Leong is a wonderful, cozy fantasy. It's all about found family and inventing fortune cookies. I'd also want to shout out Lighthouse at the Edge of the World by J.R. Dawson, which is such a beautiful meditation on grief and ghosts, and it's just lovely. And also Wooing the Witch Queen by Stephanie Burgess, which is a romantasy and is hilarious and adorable. And Vanya and the Wild Hunt by Sangu Mandana, which is a middle grade and so magical and so much fun.
I am a huge middle grade fan. I just love reading middle grade. I feel like it's so much more sophisticated than many adult readers.
So I have a middle grade to recommend too.
Let's go then.
It's called One Small Hop by Madeline Rosenberg, and it's like climate fiction, I guess. It's like near future. The kids are trying to save this endangered frog. It's like a road trip to save this endangered frog, and the sci-fi aspect of it was done like so well. And great middle grade book.
Anything else you want to recommend? Oh wait, before we get to that, Mary, Sarah, one of my favorite books, cozy fantasies to recommend for grief. You had mentioned there was a book about grief and grieving, is Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. It is. I've given it to a few people who've experienced loss, and some people can't read it right away, but the main character dies at the beginning, not spoiler, and has to come to terms with his own death, which I think is a really good way for people to enter the grief process as well. Also a cozy fantasy.
Yeah.
What about you, Mary, though? What else do you books that you want to shout out for everybody, and so that they all go to the library and check them all out?
Oh gosh, this is really hard for me. I'm not good at this. Like I read so many books and I'm just not good at it. I'm like looking at my shelf, like, I don't know.
Right. I'm like, my Kindle's over there. I want to go grab it.
This is a great way I have these conversations. So, I always say to people, like, think of a book that you had a lot of fun reading, or what was the book you were shouting out to everybody at the end of the year last year? Or when you read those end of the year lists, you were like,
the end of the year list,
wrong.
The Blueprint. What's her name?
We can look it up. Just keep going.
Yeah. The name of the book is The Blueprint. It's about it's an alternate history where there's a modern day version of slavery, and it's so well done, and she obviously read her up on her history, and it's just a really, really well done, imaginative version of that type of alternate history.
I'm just going to give it to the author. So it's The Blueprint by Ray Gianna Rashad. So that's great.
It was the top of my list for last year.
That's awesome. You know, and it's always funny because when the lists come out at the end of the year, people are always like, "What about this book? What about this book?" So did you have one of those, Sarah, that you had wished it was on more lists, or one that you really loved last year that you told everybody to read? I like to say, what's the book you bought as a gift for everyone? So like for me, I currently am buying Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabriel Zevin for lots of people, because not because of how popular it was, but because a lot of people didn't read it because they heard it was about video games. But I tell them it's the frame of video games, but it's really the best book about a friendship between a boy and a girl from childhood through adulthood that I have ever read, without any romance or anything. It's just an actual realistic friendship with the ups and downs, the good and the bad. And so I think everybody's had a friend, so that's a good story to share.
Yeah. Trying to think what books I gave to a lot of people. Can't Spell Treason Without Tea by Rebecca Thorne was one I gave to a lot of people. And Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana, who I mentioned before. She also has, I actually just read coming up, I don't remember what is coming up, but I read it to blurb, Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping, and it's so good. So
ooh, that sounds very good.
So good.
Yeah. So those are some I've been forcing on people.
I love it. All right, last chance. Any books you want to shout out or talk about? Well, then we're going to just, start closing up then. I really appreciate both of you coming. Again, Mary G. Thompson, the author of One Level Down. Oop, I got to go this way. There we go. And Sarah Beth Durst, the author of The Spellshop. But of course, both of them have many more books, and you can find them at your libraries. And yes, The Word. There we go. Which awesome. I'm telling you, cult books are everything. Sarah, do you have other books to show?
Oh, yeah. Wait, I want to show you this one. So the arc just came like yesterday.
So this is coming up.
Coming out in July. This is the Enchanted
What's
Dream.
that one about? We have another minute or two.
Yeah, this one is set in the same world as a Spellshop, but it's a standalone. So different librarian, different island. It's about a librarian and a gardener and a truly excessive number of talking plants, and also this winged cat. And it's about second chances and found family and hope.
There we go. This is what we all need right now, right? Well, it's been a wonderful conversation with both of you. I just want to thank you both for being here and for sharing about your writing, your connection to libraries, what makes you tick as writers. And I know that people are going to run to the library and get all of your books and buy copies for all their friends. And I love that you share this connection with all of us to libraries too. So please help every library, help libraries in crisis around the country by becoming a donor today. When you do, we'll send you one of the awesome stickers you see on the screen as a thank you. So visit libraryloversweek.org and take your pick. And thank you both for being here. Thank you all the people who watched this. I hope you come back for the rest of the week to be a part of this wonderful celebration that we have going on. And have a wonderful evening.
Bye, everybody.